What is going on, guys? It's the Mayor Dragon. So the teams have now been announced for round 2 of the July internationals. First teams I happen to have seen are South Africa and Wales. South Africa announced them slightly earlier, about 2 days ago actually, feeling really confident. Big team announcement, but the Wales team has just come out. So we thought we'd get in and do another preview video where we'll be running through the teams, checking them out, who we think some good picks, who we think some bad picks, potentially giving a score prediction and thoughts on the game and how I want to see both teams improve. Now, last week's game was really exciting between these two. I did do a match report for the entire game. It was absolutely bonkers. Wales taking a very early lead, 18-3 at half-time, and then going on to lose in the dying seconds of that game. Really tight-knit affair. Both teams got quite a bit to work on, not going to lie. It was a bit of a shaky game for both teams for very different reasons. So let's take a look at the team, starting off with the home team in South Africa. So South Africa have made an awful lot of substitutions for this week, which is quite surprising considering how tight last week's game was. You think they'd want to settle down, gel their team together, but obviously they're trying to look for this depth in squad. So starting off in this front row, Thomas du Toit, Joseph Dweba and Trevor Nyakane. So, big switch-ups in this front row. Now, the front row was working pretty well for them, especially in that second half with the bomb squad coming on. Really took over the Wales scrum. It felt a little bit desperate, Wales trying to hold on in those scrums then. So, switching people up, trying to find that front row that you want to take towards like a World Cup. I don't think it's a terrible move. In the lock department, Eben Etzebeth retains his number 4 shirt and Marvin Orri comes in the number 5 shirt in terms of that lock. I don't know a lot about Marvin Orri. There's quite a few people going to be making debuts and all these changes and stuff. There's going to be quite a few people here I'm not going to necessarily know that much about in terms of the Springboks team. So make sure you do drop down in the comments about some people to watch for this game and I'll try and keep a special eye out for them. In the back row then, we've got Marcel Coetzee, Peter Steph du Toit and Evan Roos. Now, this is a boy we're looking really forward to seeing. He's doing really well in terms of that club level. He's been absolutely on the cards. People desperate to see him in the Springbok side, taking over that number 8. Now, I don't think that number 8 shirt is quite settled. Jesper Weiss last week played well, played a perfectly fine game, but I think that number 8 shirt is up for grabs, so we'd be interested to see what Evan can do going into this game. Peter Steph du Toit going back in, huge bolster in terms of that flanking department. Very, very good player. So I think that's some good boosting there in terms of that back row department. So a couple of switch-ups in this forwards pack. Now, the first half last week didn't really go how South Africa wanted, so I think by making a bit of switch-ups for the first half especially, probably not a terrible move. It's just going to be if they're making slightly too many changes, could always be a bit of an issue. In terms of the halfback partnership then, big switch-ups here. I'm going to guess Jaden Hendrikse rather than Jaden. Might be Jaden, apologies, I'm not 100% sure on the name. And Andre Pollard coming back in now. Fly half last week. Oh boy, was there a lot of issues in terms of that issue. In fact, in both the halfback partners, to be fair, I saw a lot of people complaining about Faf de Klerk's box kicks. I just saw endless complaints about Elton Yanti. So a big switch up here, I don't think is a bad move. Hendrikse, there's a couple of Hendrikses around in terms of South African club level rugby. So I'm not always sure who each one is because I think they're actually brothers. So I'm going to have to keep a bit of an eye out for him, see how the improvement comes along from what we got to see from Faf de Klerk. And then Andre Pollard, is going to settle that game down. I think that's a really good move. I think that's a much better choice. I did actually think Damien Willemse played pretty well last week at fly half. So bit of a shame potentially not to get back in, but worth putting Andre Pollard in if he's fit and ready to go. In terms of the centre partnership then, Andre Esterhuizen and Jesse Creel coming in, taking over from the standard Springbok centre partnership that we get to see. Again, more changes here. Jesse Creel, I know is a hard man to stop when he's got the ball in hand. He's a very, very hard strike runner. So looking forward to see him get into this game. And then finally in that back row, Afaleli Fassi, Kurt Lee Arenze and Warwick Gallant. Now, there's another 3 names I don't know. So across the 15 players here, there is a lot of changes. In fact, I'm not even sure how many. Is like Eben Etzebeth the only guy remaining? He might be the only one remaining that was in that game last week. Big shift up. It's going to be interesting to see how Wales deal with this because an entirely new team, probably an entirely new game plan, entirely new set of skills coming in. A couple of people making their debuts, but absolutely have the talent to be getting in terms of an international shirt. Very, very exciting. Really looking forward to see what this South Africa team brings. And then in terms of the replacements, of course, we've got Malcolm Marks, who had a great game last week. Will be coming on in that second half then. Mukunu, I believe is the way it's pronounced there. I don't know a lot about him. And then Vincent Koch as well going on in that front row. So a bit of a new bomb bomb squad, but be fun to see how they get on. In the 19 shirt, Nortje. I've still not heard his name pronounced yet, so looking forward to seeing a bit from him. Reinhard Elstad coming in here. Now, he was in my Springboks team for Rugby 22, so nice to see him making in there. Dion Forey in that 21 shirt, Grant Williams in the 22 shirt, and then Damien Valemsa in the 23 shirt. So again, a lot of big shifters in the bench. They've obviously not happy with that game last week. They've made some really big calls, really big changes. Nice to see. Damien Valemsa, of course, now with that experience that he showed in fly half position last week, could come on at 10, could come on at 15, depending on where they need him. So, going to be fun to see how he gets on in this game. But overall, I think it's looking like a really fun South Africa team. It's going to be interesting to see how they change their setup. I would like to see them not kick the ball away as much. I know we've seen it in the past with the World Cup and stuff that South Africa like to kick the ball to the other teams, let the other teams try and run at them, and they're very good in terms of that defensive area. Last week, there was just too many mistakes, a lot of handling errors, kicking the ball away a little bit pointlessly. And when they were going through the phases, South Africa looked like they were actually making ground. They were actually beginning to move up the field a little bit. So kicking away the ball every 2 phases just didn't really make sense to me. So that's all I would probably want to see from South Africa. Just gel together, a bit more of a cohesive team. Going to be hard maybe with how many swaps they've made, but just hold on to the ball, go through the phases, unleash some of the backs a little bit. We didn't really see a lot from Colby or Mapimpi last week at all. The ball just wasn't spreading wide. They just relied on those forwards so much. So I'd like to see it get a little bit wide, maybe expand the game out a bit. Moving on, then, we need to talk about the away team, Wales. Now, Wales, I just think disappointed with that game last week. The first half was just all Wales. They were on top of everything, countering the South African mistakes. Reece Zammit played really well. And then that second half just began to slip more and more away from them. A lot of soft penalties. The referee may be giving a little bit too easy on some of the penalties. Just slow down the game more than anything. And with a team like South Africa, who aren't maybe up there for playing the full 80 of pure intensity like we see a bit more in the Six Nations, having those little breaks, having the referee blow the whistle a bit more, having those water breaks that we got to see so often, that really helps a team like South Africa. So Wales will have lost a lot of momentum in that second half. And then, of course, we had that ridiculous box kick away in the second half in the 80th minute. I have no idea what that decision was. I'm surprised to see that we will actually be seeing Thomas Williams still in this team. I was furious at that decision. Really weird call. So Wales got a lot to improve defensively, and penalty-based is going to be the big ones. Not necessarily the defensive line, but the scramble defence just immediately led to penalties for Wales. 9 penalties in the first half. We expect 10 at maximum from an international team across the entire game, let alone a first half. So a bit desperate with them. So in terms of the team that's been announced, starting off in this front row, we've got Thomas, Elias and Dylan Lewis. Now Dylan Lewis coming in. Tom Francis, of course, going out with that big concussion where he was just unconscious on the floor. That again, the referee didn't stop the game for. Thought a bit weird. They didn't stop the game there. So big chance now for Dylan Lewis to show off coming on in that tight head. Ryan Elias' line-outs. They've improved from the Six Nations, but that's not really saying much. I think when Dewi Lake came on in that second half, I think it made more of an impact. The line-out looked a bit more settled. Dewi Lake got himself over for the try as well. Oh, I'd maybe like to see Dewi Lake starting here. Not sure. I'll leave that up to some people down in the comments. In the lock department, no change here. Will Rowlands and Adam Beard staying. Again, didn't really see a great deal from them. Weren't really stealing a great number of the South African lineouts. I think Adam Beard was maybe getting more in the air. Will Rowlands having a number of penalties against him in terms of that breakdown as well. Need to be seeing a shift up, need to be seeing less penalties coming from this front five, really. It's just not settled. They're just too easy giving away penalties. In terms of the back row, Dan Lydiard, Tommy Raffel and Fala Tau. So I believe this is the same three we saw last week. Tommy Raffel played really well last week, actually, considering first cap against South Africa at home. Tough game, but had really nice impact in the game, so nice to see that. In the halfback partnership, Kieran Hardy and Dan Bigger. No changes there. Kieran Hardy improving the box kicking, the one scrum half in Wales that actually seems to be landing box kicks where they need to be. A couple of nice little sniping runs, well done in terms of jumping on the ball. First half, thought Kieran Hardy was playing really well. I would have liked to see him play the full 80, to be honest. Thomas Williams coming on didn't really help that team out at all. I thought Kieran Hardy was playing well, so nice to see. In the centre partnership, Tonkins and North still retaining that 12-13 angle. North, I actually thought played well, to be fair. I always struggle to see North with that 13 shirt. I desperately want to see him back on that wing. I think he made such a nice impact on the wing. And I think there's maybe better calls in terms of centres, but I thought he had a nice general game. A couple of penalties again against North, just the breakdown situation. All these players that I'm saying penalties for against the breakdown. And then in the back three, I think maybe the only change really, apart from Tom Francis because of injury, Cuthbert coming in on the left wing, Reece Zammit retaining the right wing, and Liam Williams at fullback. Now, Zammit, of course, had a really good game. It was the one yellow card that I thought was like more harsh. I actually thought Reece Zammit didn't necessarily deserve that yellow card. I thought he had a good game overall as well. 2 tries, good number of meters made. In terms of defensive rate, was really, really nice to see from him. So a good game overall from Zammit. So not surprised to see him still in the team. Cuthbert coming in on the left wing. I didn't really see a lot from Josh Adams, and there's been talks around Josh Adams' fitness, but he's still on the bench, so he's obviously fit enough to play, but not start. Personally here, what I would maybe want to see is have George North move to that left wing and move Owen Watkin into the outside centre channel. I think that gives you a more defensive setup in terms of the centre, and I think you get to unleash North a bit in the left wing. And then in that second half, if it's not working very well, you can always move North back into a centre, bring Josh Adams, bring Cuthbert on in that second half, move them onto the wing. Owen Watkins capable of being inside or outside centre, so North can move to 13, and either Tompkins or Watkins could go off. That would maybe be the only switch up I would want to see in that back row. But overall, Wales going for the opposite of the South Africa team. South Africa have changed pretty much the whole team. Wales have changed nearly no one. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the right move. I know they're trying to get a team together, trying to cohesively join this team together. But they just need to work on discipline, need to work on penalties. And I'm not sure whether having some of these mega capped players in there. I didn't really see a lot from Faletau last game, and he's starting again. Wainwright's going to be starting on the bench now. We'll move on to the subs, but Wainwright's going to be on the bench. I would like to see something from him. You know, Lydiate, Raphael, Wainwright, that's quite an exciting back three. That's a bit new. That's a bit, you know, I think that can maybe trick a couple of people. So in terms of the replacements then, I've just realised I've actually made a slight mistake earlier on. Aaron Wainwright isn't coming in. It's actually a different Wainwright. It's because the writing is like yellow. It's hard to see. So in terms of the front row replacements, we've got Dewi Lake, Wyn Jones, and new Wainwright, who I'm not actually sure who that is, but he's making his debut. But what a game to come into. You're going to come on in that second half versus the Bomb Squad against a Springboks team who last week was really crucial in terms of that second half scrum area. Going to be a really tough ask for Wainwright to come on there. So something I would like to see with teams that play against South Africa is a way to try and deal with this sort of bomb squad technique. Something that we saw last week was South Africa like to bring on that front row replacement section very early on in that second half. And what it does allows them to get that little bit of advantage on the team they're playing against, who've had their front row playing for the full 40 already, maybe by 46 minutes by the time those replacements gone. They're getting a bit tired, their legs are beginning to hurt, might have picked up a little bit of a knock here and there. So bringing on that team very early on allows you to just gain momentum in terms of that scrum. You're starting to win scrums from that 45-minute marker through to probably about 55 when the other team begins to put their front rows on. And by then, you've probably won a couple of penalties at the scrum. You might have just absolutely driven over a scrum by then. The other team's getting tired. Confidence getting knocked on that side, confidence boost on this side. You're painting a picture to the referee. You are the dominant in the scrum. So by the time the other replacements come on, you're already in the referee's mind as being the advantageous one. What I would like to see here is Wales to actually set up. I would maybe have a slightly less experienced front row to start the game and try and hold out in that first half. And what I want to see is maybe the Dewi Lake, Wyn Jones, and maybe have Dylan Lewis start on the bench. Wait to see that South African front row warming up on the sideline. They're going to come on very early in that second half. And the second they're about to come on, you chuck your front rows on too. And that way, neither team has that advantage. You go in, all of you fresh legs at the same time, power on power. Can you imagine the confidence boost that Wales would get by bringing on their second half replacements the same time as South Africa, and at the next scrum, they win a penalty or they drive the South African scrum back? Imagine what a confidence boost that would be to beat the bomb squad in that first scrum straight into that second half. What a confidence blow it would be to South Africa to bring on the big boys in that second half and then actually get driven back or losing their own scrum or something. I think there could be a way to try and counteract this South Africa technique that they use. I'm not sure whether this is particularly right. I'm not 100% sure of Wainwright's experience, so going to be fun to see him cope in this game. Hopefully we get to see them come on at a very similar time and Pivac doesn't leave that front row on for the full amount of time like we've seen in the last game. In terms of the rest of replacements then, Wyn Jones and Navidi, we saw this last week. I don't know if I saw either of them really have a massive impact on the game. Alan Wyn Jones, of course, getting his yellow card. I'm still not sure. That was 4. I think that was he was just on the receiving end of the multiple penalties and it ended up being him more than anything. Navidi came on and had a perfectly fine game. The tackle rate is something we are used to from Navidi. Had a good tackle game. But again, no real massive impact. Didn't shift the game up a great deal. In terms of replacement backs, Thomas Williams, Gareth Anscombe and Josh Adams. Thomas Williams, again, not necessarily making the biggest impact. In fact, almost making a negative impact almost. I think Kieran Hardy had a way better game than Thomas Williams last week. And when Thomas Williams came on, he literally box kicked that ball away, which allowed South Africa to go on the attack and win the penalty and win the game. I'm sure that would surely be the call. Surely it's now the call to don't kick the ball away. We saw it in Wales versus England a couple of years back. We saw it in Wales versus Italy this year in the Six Nations. We've seen it again now. Wales versus South Africa. Just hold on to the ball. Just hold on to the ball and kick it out. Leave it as a draw. Why need to kick it back? I think that will have been driven into him. I would maybe like to have seen Gareth Davis here, to be honest. I don't think Thomas Williams made any sort of impact into that game. I would like to see Gareth Davis have a go here and just let him know that Kieran Hardy might actually be first choice at the minute and make Gareth Davis play to a higher standard. Again, he went off with that Lions team. He's played South Africa before. I feel like you might as well use him at least in this sort of second game. And then Anscombe, I would just like to see Anscombe have a bit more game time. I mean, no doubt that Dan Biggar is going to be going off to that World Cup. But at the minute, Dan Biggar sort of stands head and shoulders above in terms of this fly half position. I would really like to see Gareth Anscombe get World Cup ready. And there's very few teams you can really prep for, and South Africa is probably one of the best to be doing it against. I would maybe like to see Dan Biggar play 50, maybe 60 minutes, and then put Anscombe on and give him a real chance to get into a game, play a good Springboks team, get him ready for that World Cup. I would maybe take Dan Biggar off, put Anscombe on at the exact same time. I would probably take Will Rowlands off, put Alan Wynne-Jones on, Alan Wynne-Jones at 5, Adam Beard move to 4, and bring Dan Biggar off, put Anscombe on. Let the captaincy go to Alan Wynne, let him take over like a vice-captain, give Anscombe a shot at running the game in terms of the backs, and then you have the Alan Wynne, Adam Beard combo that we saw in the Lions. That actually worked quite well in terms of that lock department. I think that would be a nice switch-up. And then finally, Josh Adams, like I've already said, I would prefer North to be on that wing and have a different centre. Maybe Josh Adams will make an impact in that game later on. Wales certainly didn't look in the last game like in that second half they were really making a big attacking options. They weren't building towards phases. They weren't doing anything looked like they were going to be scoring tries in that second half. Bar Dewi Lake sort of getting over for the driving maul. So I'm not too sure about this replacement winger thing. I maybe would have looked to have had a replacement centre here rather than a replacement winger. And then that way, if you need to replace a centre, you bring him on, you move North to the wing. And if you need a replacement wing, you just do the same action, move North to that wing and bring your centre on. And I think it gives you slightly better coverage. If George North picks up a huge knock in this game, I guess they're going to lean towards moving Josh Adams into that 13. We did see it a bit in that Six Nations. I wasn't a fan. I don't think it works very well. Pivac's desperately trying to get this thing where wingers can play centre as well. Works for some people, doesn't work with others, so not sure. So in terms of the two teams, what I really want to be seeing, I want to be seeing South Africa hold on to the ball a bit more, work through the phases and spread the ball wide, use their wingers a bit more. They've got talented wingers and they don't really seem to use them that much in the last game. Seeing a new cap, seeing new lads come on now would be fun to see how they get on in this game. And just kick the ball away less. Hold on to it. You don't need to be kicking it away constantly. And if you are going to kick it, do it for a reason. Have a purpose. Have someone on a good kick chase or something. Not just booting it to the Wales team just to do it. In terms of the Wales team, just got to organise that scramble defence. In terms of being able to have a line broken by a team like South Africa, it probably will happen in a game. We're not in the era of having Gatland and Sean Edwards holding the Wales defence anymore. There are holes beginning to open up. You've got to have that scramble defence work well. And while the tackles are being made, the immediate thing to give away a penalty just to stop them scoring a try needs to be cut out. Discipline needs to be worked on. Breakdown situations need to be worked on a little bit more. And just working through building their own attack. I really didn't feel like in that second half we saw Wales trying to score a try. It felt like they were more hanging on. They were waiting for penalties to come and move up the field or just take the three. They weren't building their own attack. They weren't really attempting to go for tries themselves. So that's what I want to see in this game. Again, so it's into South Africa, hold on to the ball. Just go through the phases, work your way through that South African defence. Maybe you can find some gaps, use the penalties if they come to move up the field, but just have that confidence to go for the try, believe in your own players, and hopefully score some good points. So in terms of a score prediction for this one, really tough because of how many changes there are to this Springboks team. I have no idea whether this is going to be the best change ever, and this Springboks team could be 10 times better than the one we saw last game, or it could be way too many changes and the team actually gets hindered because of it. My head is saying to go with South Africa. Just because it's South Africa. We saw how the last game went. You know, they will have learned a lot from that game. A lot of big switches, big team changes. Oh, my head wants to say South Africa win. However, I'm worried that there's too many changes in that South African team. I'm wondering whether we'll actually see almost like a repeat of the first game, that the first half will be a bit calamitous for them, trying to just gel together that little bit, and then you'll move towards that second half where they might get a bit more used to it. I'm actually going to lean towards Wales here. I think that's a big call. I mean, even as I'm saying it, I'm going, that's a big call. I don't know if I agree with that. But I am actually going to say Wales to win this one. I think by just playing the same team and being a bit more gelled than what we've seen in the South Africa team, I think the thing they'll be working on is just that attack. If they hold on to the bit more, I'm not sure if South Africa are going to be able to mount the same comeback, but Wales need to build the attack. They can't be waiting for mistakes and letting Zammit do all the work for a try. They need to build a score. So I'm going to go for a Wales win this time. Not by a lot. I'm going to say Wales to win by about 2. Again, going to be within that 1 score marker, as we're probably going to be expecting throughout this tournament. But I can absolutely see if this Springboks team comes in all firing on all cylinders, you know, straight from the off, this could be a bit of a smashing for South Africa. But I just think the number of changes made might be a bit too much for South Africa. Might have liked to see, you know, 4 or 5 less changes, just to have had that settled team go on to win a second test. But, you know, you're 1-0 up. It's worth making all these big changes to get them the experience. You've still got 1 test left, even if you lose this one. I don't necessarily think it's the worst move by Springboks, but might just be a little bit too much. But there we have it, guys. That's going to be the preview video for today. Make sure you do drop down in the comments your thoughts on the game. Who do you think is going to win? How much do you think they're going to win by? How many of these players do you think should not be in this team? Who would you have liked to see in instead? I always enjoy reading through the comments. Of course, we're going to be doing the Super Brew again this week. Make sure you are signed up and choosing your point scores and stuff, because there is a game on the Friday, which caught a couple of people out last week. So make sure you are getting those scores locked in before the game kicks off. I'm going to be trying to do quite a few of these preview videos over the course of today to try and get ready for the weekend. So make sure you are subscribed just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. And if you've enjoyed this one today, make sure to leave it a like. I hope you enjoyed this one today, guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.